Hello friends and welcome back. My name is Kat and today I want to share somewhat of a recent development with you.
Many people think that anime is Japanese cartoons meant for children.
Well, I started watching anime again as an adult and it's been freaking amazing. I want to first explain that I'm by no means new to anime. I watched it as a kid when I had time, but this time round it feels different. Over a decade ago, I was really into this anime called Detective Conan. Some of you may know it as Case Closed. I think that's what they called the English dubbed version. Growing up, I wasn't really allowed to watch any of the dramas, films, TVs, animations. Quite ironic, isn't it, that I ended up with a degree in film and television. My only way of watching Detective Conan was by buying these DVDs from China. This is before I had access to a computer, to the internet and all of that goodness. So every time I had to go and secretly meet up with my aunt and some sketchy salesman who would bring a cloth bag filled with DVDs and we would sit down and begin bargaining, the three of us. I would then hide the DVDs in a discreet, somewhat misleading DVD case. No one would ever know it was anime. And then I would immediately bury it in my suitcase, deep in the corner where nobody ever looks. I hope. This whole thing felt like a secret drug deal, or a spy mission. Let's go with spy mission because it sounds a lot cooler. For those of you who don't know, Detective Conan premiered in 1996 in Japan, and it is still ongoing. It has, I think, somewhere around 988 episodes out, and it is currently the 16th longest running anime ever. I probably stopped really following it after 500. The bigger, cooler storylines are quite hazy. It's been a while and it's a lot of episodes. And just in case you don't know this series, it's about a 17-year-old detective prodigy who is forced back into the body of a child 10 years younger. As a result, he adopts a new identity to find out who's behind this. It's like some secret, dark organization. And as he is looking into this, he also solves a lot of crimes on the way. It's basically an episodic detective series with lots of other bigger story arcs. The deeper you get into it, the darker the arcs. I dabbled here and there in a few animes, and I also read some manga when I couldn't wait for the subbed anime version to come out. But this was definitely just me being super curious. A bit like when you're a kid reading the news, just repeating some of the big words sounds really cool, but you don't really know what's going on. To me, anime just seemed kind of cool. Of course, when it came time to study and focus on exams and schoolwork, I just completely forgot about anime. Until Death Note. It was a series I'd started watching but never really got past part of the first episode, probably because I was, I don't know, busy or something, I have no idea. I'd always really wanted to watch it because I'd heard so many good things about it. Finally, many years later, I got around to it and wow, just wow. Then I came across a slightly lesser known series, Psychopaths. I'd never heard of it before it popped up on Netflix. There we go, Netflix algorithm pushing the right series. And the first season blew my mind. I loved philosophy, and evidently with Detective Conan, I loved detective stuff. So this was a perfect detective philosophy combo mixed in with action and mystery. When I used to watch anime, I thought it was great and all, but it was just another story that was on the screen. I didn't really think about the details. It was an escape, but it was also somewhat educational about people and cultures, which is a double-edged sword because the representation of women in anime is, to put it lightly. Sometimes I have to stop watching a series just because of the way that they characterize women. It sets my teeth on edge, but this is a separate issue. Let's get back to why anime is so life-changing and amazing. So, it was an escape, but now it's totally different. I watch it as someone who knows the amount of work that goes into its creation. I see the way that they craft the story so that it fits the right audience, to show an idea or pose a question without pushing it too hard. Of course, this could be said about a lot of different types of content, like adverts. As a creative, what makes anime really different to me is that I find it immensely inspiring in two ways. Firstly, of course, you think about how each character is drawn, and then the voice acting that goes into it, how consistent it is, or should be. The music, oh my wow. This music is so epic. You could imagine John Williams coming up with something like this. And when an anime has its own music suite and a live performance recorded, you know it's good. The dialogue writing. For some, yes, there are plenty that are really cheesy. Death Note is a thriller with suspense and has fantastic execution with an original storyline. The dialogue and characters are written with extreme care, keeping you hooked and surprised every episode. Many animes have fillers, but this one really does keep the tension up throughout. It looks into the topic of morality and makes the audience question justice, capital punishment, and vigilantism. The best characters are those that are filled with conflict and are very complex. This is exactly what this anime gives us.
us. There is no clear right or wrong, and that's what keeps us interested. In Psychopaths, the protagonist's character development during season 1 along with the powerful dialogue are all done to a very high standard. It's a crime detective psychological thriller series and centers around the topics of free will and philosophy, delving in and out of ethics, morality, and the role of law.
Just the thought of how many people have worked on this to put it together and how dedicated they all are to the craft, it just makes you want to work harder, doesn't it? Secondly, it is so creative. Whenever there's a creative block, whether it's a writer's block or an artistic block, whatever block it is, anime is so out there that it's bound to give you something to work with. Seriously, there are some really crazy premises, and it forces me to think outside the box and accept a weird world. I mean, in Naruto, everyone runs with their arms flailing backwards. It feels a bit off at first when you see it, but when you try it, boy is it weird. Not that I've tried it, or maybe I have. Or not. And yes, I've watched it. All of it. Did I sacrifice sleep to watch little ninjas battle it out amidst the chaos that is work and life and adulting? That's a secret. We are much more lenient as the audience when it comes to accepting a world in anime. We're more willing to put aside reality and to give in to the phenomenon that's called suspension of disbelief. This is a semi-conscious decision in which you put aside your disbelief and accept the premise as being real for the duration of the story. With live action, it's much harder to do this well because we're watching humans and they're similar to us. So we're a lot more aware of what feels strange, e.g. floating around in the air and releasing water from our palms. If it's not done well, it can look very strange. If any of you have watched the animation Avatar: The Last Airbender and compared it to the movie that came out in 2010 that was live action, well, you know what I'm talking about. What this means is that world building in anime can be inventive and creative. We're fine with believing that writing in a notebook could be an act of murder. In fact, Death Note is another great example of how the anime far outshined the live action series. I found myself very curious about science fiction and action animes lately because of how far you can push the boundaries of creativity, not only in their story arcs, but also in the way that they're drawn, the stylistic choices that the creatives make, what sort of humor they opt to have, how they choose to create tension. You learn about how the animes try to balance the canon episodes, which is the main storyline, and the filler episodes, which is basically just buffer until the manga can catch up. And you also learn about how that balance can affect the trust that the audience has in the creators. And as an adult, I also visited Japan, and I can see how a lot of elements of Japanese culture and values are incorporated into anime. Of course, there are lots of bad animes, and animes that are great but just don't hold my interest. For me, this whole journey of watching anime as an adult has been a great way to get inspired again and again. Or whenever I have a creative block or I need some extra inspiration, it's become the thing that I choose to watch. It's like how Harry Potter has a fantastic world that is built. Now imagine that level of world building for loads and loads of animes, especially the fantasy ones.
Anime is definitely very well suited for adults, as a lot of them tackle mature topics with beautiful artistry. If you're an adult interested in deeper, more serious shows with tension to keep you hooked throughout, I'd recommend Death Note or Psychopaths. If you want something with a more wholesome end message and a creatively thought out world with some moments of extreme seriousness but also plenty of fluffy side stories, then I'd recommend Naruto.
Are you a fan of anime? Are there any that you would recommend? Because I'm definitely interested to know what you watch. In fact, I'd love to hear your thoughts about anime in general. Are there any stereotypes that come to mind? Do you believe them? Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time. Bye!